Hey guys, welcome. So does everyone see me? Because this is the very first time I'm using StreamYard. OBS kept crashing. So I've been live for 25 seconds. I'm going to give everyone a chance to move over. Yeah. So let me find where I can get the stream. Yeah. Excellent. So everyone, welcome. Thanks all for being here. I'm just going to give you guys 1 minute to switch over. Chloe, welcome. Good to see you. Matanga, Mariana, XYZ, was thank you, Gabriel. Good to see you guys. And someone left me a super chat earlier. Silver LTC, thank you very, very much. I'm very grateful. Thank you. Now, let me share my screen. Let me get started. Uh, so, I'm just sharing my second screen. So, you guys should see me at the moment. Right. Along with I have no idea what happened. OBS just crashed each time. I've rebooted a couple of times. I reinstalled it. Nothing. So Dodzor Reason says welcome. Hey there. Good to see you guys all. Okay, so this is a preview of what I will be doing with Thaddeus next week. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. Now, the point of this discussion is to talk about Islam having a basis in pagan religion, specifically moon worship, with Allah being a moon god. Now, I know that there's been a lot said about this back and forth. I thought I would have a look at this and try to see if I can come up with something definitive, and I believe I have. I believe we can most certainly show that Islam was rife with Babylonian pagan gods, that the entire Arabian pantheon was Babylonian, and that all of the gods, including those of the Quraysh in Mecca, all of these were worshipping the moon god, and that Allah was one of these. So let me start here. I finished with Thaddeus a week ago with this slide, talking about Abd Manaf. So apparently Khadija bore him a son called Abd Manaf, the servant of Manaf by Muhammad. Now, Manaf was an ancient idol venerated by the Quraysh, one of the most important divinities at Mecca. Let's look a little deeper into who Manaf was. Now, think of this, Manaf, Manat. Very similar names, right? Now, Manaf is a pre-Islamic god worshipped among the Quraysh and other tribes of northwest Arabia. We know little about this deity except the lists that are preserved by Muslim scholars. From the name, it would appear that he was an astral deity and his idols were located in the Kaaba. Right? So, yes, MOONotheism. Exactly, Thaddeus. MOONotheism. Right. Now let's look at Manat. She's an important female deity of the pre-Islamic period. She's usually associated with Alat and Al-Uzza, the so-called daughters of Allah. Evidence from the Near East shows that this goddess was very ancient. Her name appears in early Akkadian and is one of the names associated with Ishtar. Ishtar is the star god, right? Goes under many names: Venus, Ishtar, Ashtaroth. We'll come through those names in a bit. Generally perceived to be the son of the moon god and the sun god. In Palmyra, now, of course, sometimes in certain cultures, the deities switch genders from male to female or vice versa. In Palmyra, she's shown as a seated deity holding a scepter and so on. In Arabia, her worship location was close to Yathrib, Medina, and she was worshipped by the two Arab tribes of the city. She was linked with Alat and Al-Uzza, and Ugaritic evidence has 3 linked female deities as the daughters of Baal. Interesting. So Baal apparently has 3 daughters, and they may be the same as Alat, Manat, and Al-Uzza. Let's continue. So the symbol for Al-Makkah, this here, as you can see, is the crescent moon, the horned god, or the crescent moon, the moon god. Now, this symbol, generally the disk represents the sun, but not in every case. It may also represent the disk of Venus, the morning star. Here you can see again the crescent moon god symbol. Hi, Andrew. Aquarian Riddle. Welcome, Sergeant Grinch. Good to see you guys. So, now the Sabaean moon god, Al-Makka, was king of the gods, similar to the Mesopotamian moon god, Nanna, also known as Sin, Nanar, Nanaswen, and several other names. He's one of the oldest deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon. Al-Makka was the main god for Yemen and Axum in Ethiopia before Christianity, along with Shams or Shemesh, the sun god. Now, the Somalians worshipped Al-Makkah, but also a god called Wak. Now, we'll skip that. So understand this is still raw. I haven't finished these slides yet, so there may be some bugs. You might find some oddities in the slides, but that's to be expected. So yes, thanks XYZ. So today's topic is monotheism. We're going to look at, is Allah a moon god? And I think the answer to this is, well, partly at least. So Nabonidus. Let's look at the Temple of Sin. Now, Nabonidus, we've mentioned it before. He controlled this region here, okay? And this region, of course, was desert. So at that time, people couldn't really live there and travel there. It wasn't very comfortable because of the harsh conditions. His son was Belshazzar. You'll know him along with the prophet Daniel with the finger with the writing on the wall. He lived 10 years in a place called Tema, Saudi Arabia, which is around about here. It's north of Medina. Also called Yemen in the past, interestingly. It's an oasis with a history of settlement, and it is about 350 km north of Medina, and it was a center of moon worship. Now, Nabonidus was the son-in-law of King Nebuchadnezzar, also mentioned in the Bible. His mother was a high priestess of the moon god Sin in Haran in Turkey, and his daughter was the high priestess of the moon god Sin at Ur. So he's of course mentioned, and Sin is mentioned in Judges 8:21. I'm going to skip these for the time being. Right, I'll give those a longer treatment next time, as well as this. Now, the word Yatrib appears in the inscription found in Haran in Turkey, which belongs to the Babylonian king Nabonidus. So he speaks of Yatrib, Medina. Now, when he invaded Arabia, he went down as far as Medina. Now, he was the last king of Babylon, of the Sumerian Mesopotamian cultures. As we said, he was related to Nebuchadnezzar, and he had a childhood in Sabian Haran, which is a major site of worship for the moon god Sin. He has been called the first archaeologist, apparently, but he rearranged the Babylonian pantheon of gods. At that time, the major god was Marduk. Paganism was a family affair, correct, Andrew? But guys, I think what you're going to learn here today is going to change things. It's going to change the way we perceive things. So here he's pictured on an engraving in Saudi Arabia. He's wearing a little wizard's hat with his staff. Here you've got the moon god, the two-horned moon god. You've got the sun, the feathered sun, and the star. This snake apparently represents the Milky Way. He lived in Tema, Saudi Arabia, for 10 years as his capital before he moved back to Mesopotamia. Now, Sin is considered the father of the gods and the god of wisdom, worshipped in Haran until the arrival of Islam. Now, crescent moon flags in the region, which are very common within Islamic countries, are traced to Sin. And also remember, there was a trinity of gods: star, moon, sun. The sun was not the chief god in the Arabian pantheon. In other cultures, the star was considered male and the moon female. In Arabia, it was flipped around. You had the wing-feathered sun disk, Shamash, who was the god of justice and morality. And then you had Ishtar, also known as Venus, Aphrodite, Ashtoreth, Athar, Attar, and others. This god could be male in some cultures, could be female in other cultures, but always associated with the star Venus. So it could be both male and female. The Kaaba, we'll get to that little clock, yes, I'm well aware of that. So now notice Venus, though, is a goddess of love and war. Bear in mind the war god. Here he is again with the trinity of Babylonian gods. Now, Tema's influence. So Tema's position may have forced or stimulated the other town states of the oasis of Arabia Deserta to partake to some degree in the civilizations of the surrounding countries in the northeast, the northwest, and the south, while trying to preserve or reestablish their independence. That's from the Encyclopaedia of Islam. Now, interestingly, different scripts were used and developed. Even the clansmen of the nomadic tribes knew how to write. This is from the Encyclopaedia of Islam, Volume 1. So writing was actually fairly common within Arabia at the time. Oddly enough, after the arrival of Muhammad, there was nothing. So the general conclusion that I would draw at this point is that they destroyed the records. If writing was common, because numerous scripts were found, numerous scripts are known to have existed in that region, then where did all the documentation go? Now, there are several important archaeological sites on the Arab-Persian Gulf coast. They mention here surviving documents written in Aramaic, and Aramaic was the mother tongue of part of the population, especially the elites. A large number of Aramaic-speaking churchmen and religious authors in the Nestorian church came from the Gulf. There were texts in Sabaean script, which were relatively common. In the Gulf, as in the north of the Hejaz, texts in foreign languages, Akkadian, Imperial, Aramaic, Nabatean, Greek, and Latin are common. In southern Arabia, 5 inscriptions have been found in Ge'ez, which is classical Ethiopic, 2 in Hebrew, 3 Sabaic Nabatean bilinguals, and a Greek Latin one, and 1 inscription in Greek, 1 in Nabatean, and 1 in Palmyrenian. There's also graffiti in Greek, Nabatean, Palmyrenian, Indian, and Ge'ez graffiti. So this was a melting pot due to all of the trading they did. So if they were literate and if they were writing, it's interesting that there's no records within the Islamic period. Library burning by Muslims. Yes, I'd have to agree with you there. I would have to agree with you there. So let's continue. In the early polytheistic period, the Hadrami, now the Hadramaut, this is in Yemen, this is central Yemen, south of Arabia, shows a close similarity to other South Arabian areas dominated by the astral triad of Moon, Sun, and Venus star, except that the moon god in Hadramaut bore the distinctive name Sin, borrowed from Babylonian religion. He's commonly referred to as Sin of Ilm, and it has been conjectured that the latter term is the name of the principal shrine of this deity. Okay, Encyclopaedia of Islam, volume 3. Now, let's jump to Haran for a moment, the home of the patriarchs. There's a lot to be said about Abraham. I'm not going to cover that at length here. So Haran exists in Turkey today, sitting on top of the old one from the Old Testament period. Near Haran are villages that bear the names of Abraham's great-grandfather and his grandfather, Serug and Nahor. Haran was the father of Lot. The cities of Ur and Haran both had the moon god as their main deity, and Terah, father of Abraham, worshipped other gods, and he moved his family from Ur to Haran. Now, this interesting biblical passage, Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they were the merchants of thy hand, in lambs and rams and goats. At Caesar, the traffickers of Sheba, they were thy traffickers. They traded for thy wares. They mention Haran and Canna and Eden, the traffickers of Sheba. So now we're talking about Turkey, right? Northern Mesopotamia, Turkey, and they're referring to the traffickers from Sheba, which means there was trade all that way from Yemen, all the way up to Turkey and back down again. So Ashur was as thine apprentice in traffic. These locations are all in northern Mesopotamia. And they are mentioning here the traffickers from Sheba. So there was trade, there was communication between these regions. And Haran is close to Göbekli Tepe too. Yeah, it's about 40 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe. And as I mentioned last week, Göbekli Tepe is not the only, and is not even now the oldest temple in the world. There's one even older than Göbekli Tepe. I showed last week a slide with about 15 or 18 temples like Göbekli Tepe, part of a major complex of shrines all linked to the same religion. So, and apparently, according to one source that I read, there's dozens of these, dozens. And I showed, I think, something like 15 or 18 of those in the last show. So let's have a look here. This area here, as you know, is Makaraba. You've got Aksum here. This is Hadramaut here in Yemen. Well, to the east, this is Hadramaut here. You'll see this is the central part. This is Sabah, where the Sabaeans are. Now, it seems to be of great importance for the cultural and religious development of the Arabs that Nabonidus of Babylonia conquered Tamar, and he made an expedition as far as Yathrib. Yathrib, as we know, is Medina. And he said he built a palace in Tamar and made this the center of an archaistic religion and cult around the Aramaean moon god Sin, perhaps with the sun disk resting in the crescent as the main symbol of this religion. There should be investigations on the close resemblances between this cult and that of South Arabia and Ethiopia. So this is the cult of Babylon. Understand? They're saying here that the cult of Babylon brought by King Nabonidus is very close to the cults of South Arabia and Ethiopia. Sin was the state god of Hadramaut since the earliest inscriptions of this state. So Sin was found all the way from Turkey through northern Mesopotamia, all the way down through Medina, all the way down into Yemen. Sin was the state god across all of Arabia, into Syria, into Mesopotamia. That includes Iraq and Turkey. Now, briefly on Terah. So Göbekli Tepe represented a change in thought by archaeologists, which now say that religion was the source of civilization, not the other way around. That's very interesting, and I would tend to agree. Right. So now Elam, name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews. Variants of Elams were Era, Etera, El Makkah, and that's Al Makkah back again, the moon god of the Sabah, Al Makkah. And I found a few things about Al-Makkah and Terah. Terah is the father of Abraham. So his name is that of the moon god. Yam, Babylonian sea god killed by Baal. Yom, just thought you might find that interesting. So the name Terah means ibex, which in ancient times was a well-known symbol for the moon on account of the curved horns. Sykes wrote that Terah was a theophoric name. It's like a name of a god. Terah, ancient Semitic name for the moon, equated with Terah, father of Abraham. The moon was also known as Eterah and Jerah. Jerah has references within the Bible. Was it a military-style religion, Lloyd? Yes, they all were. I will get to that. Elam, name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews. So there you go, much confirmation of that. Abraham's younger brother was named after the city Haran. Haran was the city of the moon. So the name Haran seems to have become a theophoric name of the god, synonymous with the moon god Sin. Haran received a name that referred to the moon similar to Jerah and Terah. And the temple of Bilqis, queen of Sheba, was a moon god temple, which in fact misled the Arabs to think that Solomon's god Yahweh must have been a moon god as well. So because the queen of Sheba, her main temple was to Al-Makkah, the moon god, they thought that Yahweh must be a moon god as well. So as you can, that's not a complete slide. It's still in blue. I'm working on that. Now, let's look at El. El is ancient Semitic term for deity. It's a general term. In the Syrian, you have Ilu. You remember last week I spoke of Karabi Ilu, right? From the Makoraba, from the Mukaribs, and also Ugarit Il. Generic word for God in the Semitic languages, used over 200 times in the Old Testament. Now, El was the chief and somewhat vague, shadowy god of the Canaanite pantheon, and the title is used in the Old Testament to express the exalted transcendence of Yahweh. So the Hebrews borrowed this word from the Canaanites. The linguistic derivation of the name is not sure. Suggestions include roots that mean to be strong and to be in front of, as a leader. Now, the Canaanite god El was the father of human beings and of gods, called father of mankind and the father of years. However, El, the Canaanite god El, was an immoral and debased character. He was not moral the way that we would view the god Yahweh to be moral. It is a tribute to the high morality of the Old Testament understanding of God that a title that in Canaanite usage was so defiled could be used to express the moral majesty of the God of Israel. So just as the word God in English can be used of the true God or of false gods, this word in Hebrew may refer to heathen gods and usually refers to idols. In Strong's H410, we have El, and notice it's used in Sabaean, in Assyrian, in Nabatean, Phoenician, Palmyrene, as well as in Assyrian, Alat. You'll see here in Assyrian, Alat. In Sabaean, they have DHM. So I think that is Dimit, but that I'll get to when we talk about Ethiopia next time. It's also in Arabic. So it's in the Syriac. So this word is very common within all of these languages. And we can see here Alat is an Assyrian goddess. So again, from Mesopotamia, found in Arabia. And of course, here we have Baalim, Be'el, Halel, that's a very interesting one, and Ka'el. Okay, so now I'll skip on to that. So Yahweh replaced the god El as Israel's God. Now, question here, the religion of Abraham. Muhammad had companions that were looking for the religion of Abraham because they rejected Judaism because they felt that there wasn't, well, they rejected Judaism as the religion of Abraham, right? Because they said that this came with Moses, right? And therefore, what religion was Abraham worshipping before the advent of Judaism? They don't understand the Noahide laws. They don't understand Judaism. They did not understand Judaic religion. However, prior to that, of course, the religion of Abraham was moon worship. So in Judges 3:7, we read that during Joshua's time, what the Israelites did was offensive to Yahweh. They ignored Yahweh and they worshipped Baalim, plural of Baal, and Asherot, known as Atherat, which is a plural of Asherah. These are all the same God. Asherot, Atherat, Asherah. So in Kings, we've got Baal and Asherah. And of course, Baal's wife, Asherah, was also known as Baalah, right? Baalah was the name of Baal's wife. You've got multiple references to this. I'm not going to go into depth here. So in Ogarit as well, we have references again to Athirat, the consort of the great god El. Athirat is the Ugaristic linguistic equivalent of the Hebrew Asherah, and Atera is also, well, in the Arabian pantheon. Now, let's go back to Yemen. So this area, the Hadramaut, okay, these Yemenis actually invaded Arabia, and they conquered this whole area you see here in brown. Now, according to some sources, these people were simply nomadic, and maybe some of them were. There's no reason to assume that they weren't. However, they established cities. They built towns and cities. Nomads don't build permanent cities. This is their capital here, Qaryat al-Faw, also known as Qaryat Datkal, right? So now you've got this whole area, which includes Medina and Mecca, which they control. So these Yemenis actually invaded and controlled all of Central Arabia. This is around the year 500. So they control this entire region. Give me a second. I need to plug in my keyboard because the battery just went on. Okay, done. So now you've got these Yemenis who worship these moon gods, and they've now taken over Central Arabia. So now, and they were called the Kinda. So they were called the Kinda. And this was the Central Arabian kingdom of Kinda, Kindat al-Malak. Al-Malak is kings. So the Muslim sources agree that the Hadramaut was the original homeland of the tribe of Kinda, an offshoot which founded the Central Arabian kingdom of Kinda, the Kindat al-Malak. The capital still stands today, southeast of Mecca. The gods they worshipped include Kal, also, you can see Ka'el, the Jewish god, El, right? So at least under the Jewish script, we saw Ka'el. And also Atta al-Sharik, okay? And a god called La. Interestingly, a god called La. So now, Al-Sharik means rising from the east. It also means sunrise, and it also means, it's a reference to the sun, and it also means companion or partner of the main god, right? So this is a partner to the main god. Now, South Arabian inscriptions from the 4th to 5th century refer also to, interestingly, to a god called the Rahman, the merciful one, who had a monotheistic cult and was referred to as the Lord of heaven and earth. Now, Rahman, the merciful one, is basically Yahweh, the God of the Bible, because you had the influence of Christianity on that region. And what happened was Islam absorbed Rahman, who was a monotheistic God, into Islam, right? As one of the names and as the character of Allah. So Aaron Hughes states that scholars are not sure whether he developed from earlier monotheistic, polytheistic systems or developed due to the increasing significance of the Christian and Jewish communities. So Rahman was a god of, so we'll see later, Rahman was the name of the Jews and Christians' God, Rahman. And on top of that, Muhammad was not the only prophet at the time, not the only fake prophet at the time. He was competing with a number of other prophets. There was one other guy whose group also happened to worship the monotheistic Rahman. Very interesting. So let's borrow the name of Yahweh. So a second question concerns the nature of Allah, right? Was he the God of the supporters of monotheism or God of pagan origin? In the oldest revelations of the Quran, very interestingly, thank you very much, Ben Yosef. Well, much appreciated. So in the oldest revelations of the Quran, the name of Allah does not appear. So when Muhammad refers to God, he says the Lord, or if he wants to give him a name, he calls him Rahman, Al-Rahman, which is the name of the one God of the Jews and the Christians of Arabia, but also the name of the God of the followers of Musaylima. Musaylima was another fake prophet going around at the time who had established his own religion as well. So I need to dig into this guy another time, right? So Allah is thus a God originating in polytheism, and inscriptions do seem to confirm it. At Qaryat al-Faw, this is the main city, this is the capital city of this group from Yemen that invaded into southern Arabia, the Kinda. A certain eagle entrusts the tomb he has built to Kal Allah, and to Athtar the Oriental. The text is dated by the writing style to the beginning of the Christian era. So Musaylima was a competing prophet with Muhammad who was killed. Yes. And he worshipped the one monotheistic God, Ar-Rahman. So very interesting. Let's continue. Now let's look at some pre-Islamic Arabian deities. Hilal is a god of the new moon. Is the moon god of the Kataban from Yemen as well. And he has the goddess Atherat as his consort. Deuteroscopy 12 has Yahweh commanding the destruction of all of her shrines as to maintain the purity of the worship of Yahweh. So Atherat equals Asherah equals Ashtaroth equal Astarte, multiple different names. And also, as I said, within the Arabian culture, the gender of these gods was reversed. The moon god became masculine, the sun god feminine. Now the prophets of Israel warned God's people not to worship these gods. Now Kaal is the moon god of the Hadramaut, the Yemen, the Kinda. Sin was the chief god of the Hadramites, again connected to the Semitic god Sin. Talab is a moon god worshipped by the Sumay, a Sabaean tribal confederation. And then we've got some very interesting gods here. Yata is associated with salvation. His name means savior, Yata the savior. And he is an archaic equivalent to Yesha, Yeshua, Yesha, Yasha, a masculine noun meaning salvation, found in Strong's Hebrew 3468 and 3467. It is taken from the root Yasha, Yeshua, Yasha, Yeshua, Yasha. You guys fill in the blanks for me, but this is a god of the time. Then Dul Khalasa was a god worshipped by the Bajila and this tribe, and reportedly worshipped as a god of redemption. His temple became known as the Kaaba of Yemen. Okay, yes, son of Adam, correct. Son of Aram. Yeah, Musalem was no more of a prophet than Muhammad, exactly. But now you've got this Dul Khalasa, the god of redemption. Now, understand, Jesus was the savior. Jesus is the savior. And of course, you've got the stories, and I'll get to those later, with the Yemen Hadith, where Muhammad is said to only touch the Yemen corner of the Kaaba, because when you touch it, it erases your sins. It brings salvation. That's just very, very interesting, right? So what do you guys think of that? Now, something else again. Now we've got a 7th century, 8th century, 7th century seal. It bears the name Al-Makun Yahweh and Yahweh Malak. The name may be taken to mean the creature of Yahweh or the property of Yahweh. It also means the servant of Yahweh. So now we spoke previously of the Muqarribs, right? And we spoke of the ones who serve the Muqarrib, and the Muqarrib serves the God, right? So Al-Muk, one of the names of Al-Makkah is also Al-Muk. And it's just very interesting. You've got this LMQ, which may refer to also Al-Makkah. Al-Makkah of Yahweh, Al-Makkah who serves Yahweh. So the creature of Yahweh, the creation of Yahweh, the servant of Yahweh. It may potentially mean that, right? Because you had an active cult of Yahweh in the region. So, and that was early. Now, let's go on. Go forth and sin no more. Let's look at some Arabian gods. Alat Shams, meaning the goddess sun, equivalent to the Babylonian Shamash. It's Sumerian, Akkadian, Canaanite. These are the same god across all of Sol, Helios, Apollo. Alat Shams, Alat, Manat, Alat, Al-Uzza, Alat Shams, Shamash, Babylonian. Now you've got the moon, Diana, Luna in Rome, Greek, Selena, Artemis. And then you've got Allah Ta'ala, Sin, meaning the most high God Sin. Allah today is still called Allah Ta'ala. It's still in common use today. And of course, in Babylon, the same God is called Sin and Sin. Again, in Akkadian, Sin, and in Yemen, Sin. So you've got Swen, Sin, 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 and Sin. So this is far too much to just be pure coincidence. So now you've got multiple moon gods, and all of the moon gods are gods of war. So you've got the moon gods, Allah, and remember there was one called La as well, right? So it may not be, Allah may not be a contraction of Al-Illah, it might be an expansion of La. You've got Ilumku, who is also, we know him as Al-Makkah, right? Same god. Mahram, Ethiopian. Osiris, Sin, Wad, and Yera, also known in the Bible as Jera, linked again to Abraham's family. But let's continue. Moon worship centers: Aksum, Haran, Hurayda, Yemen; Marib, Yemen; Shabwa, Yemen; Tema, Saudi Arabia, right? These are all major centers, so that the entire Arabia was doing moon worship and worshiping Babylonian gods. So the vicious god in the Quran is consistent, though not with the god of the Bible, with a South Arabian war and moon god. So Hans Kraus writes, scholar writes, the main god, the national god of war. This is in all South Arabian, yes, nearly in all Semitic monuments, a sure identifying mark of the moon god. So the god of war is the moon god. So the Sabaean moon and war god, Al-Makkah. So now we know that Al-Makkah, that's why the Muqarribs are warrior kings. They're priest kings, but they are warrior priest kings. So the Sabaean moon god and the war god Al-Makkah. So now you've got Muhammad, who becomes a warrior king. Then you get his followers who become warrior kings. The caliph is a warrior king, but also a priest king, right? A warrior priest king, jihad. So this is simply an extension of this idea from the past. Then you've got, now Al-Makkah's successor was Allah, right? So So let's continue here. Notice these are some inscriptions from the past in 250 AD. He has granted him to return with honor and with the spoils of 32 slaughtered enemies and with booty. Booty is entirely part and parcel of Islamic spoils of war. Then you've got Al-Makkah of Haran. Al-Makkah of Haran. So now Al-Makkah wasn't just in southern Yemen. Al-Makkah was now in Iran, in Turkey. So now you've got Al-Makkah, who's all over the geographical map. So clearly he's not isolated to one little tribe. This was literally all over Arabia. Al-Makkah has granted him trophies, spoils, and captives. Erkan, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yes, I'm working on this very hard. So now you can see this link to jihad. Then you've got control of the incense route. So Al-Makkah has granted these guys control of the incense route. What was Muhammad? A pirate. What did he steal? Stuff from camels, right? He was a caravan robber. So they took control of the incense route and they crushed the kingdoms of Al-San and Nashan. So let's continue. Now let's look at some Quran surahs. As I said, this is not complete. I'm just introducing this. I'm running through this real fast. But Quran 36, Yasin. This chapter is known as the heart of the unholy Quran. And the scholars say the meaning of Yasin is unknown. It is debated amongst Muslim scholars. One interpretation is, "O human being." Okay? And apparently this chapter 36 called Yasin is representative of the divine origin, of the amazing origin of the Quran. It's like the most important chapter that really showcases what the Quran is about. I think it's in the name, Sin. Let's continue. Al-Qamar, the moon. Al-Qamar also happens to be a moon god of Arabia. Ar-Rahman, we've met Ar-Rahman before. He also happens to be a god of Arabia. Al-Buruj, well, they worship the stars. That's another one of the moon gods of Arabia. Al-Malik, we've met the Al-Maliks, the Muqarrabs, we've covered that. At-Tariq, the morning star. Venus, another name for Venus, the morning star, the son of the moon and the sun god. Ash-Shams, the sun. Okay, Shamash, the Babylonian sun god. Chapter of the Quran 91. And then, of course, you've got another mention of Saba or Sheba, Quran 34. And this in Quran 34, 16 to 19, actually discusses Saba and the capital of Marib and how their dam, so the dam at Marib actually broke, flooded the capital, destroyed it, and they abandoned Marib at the time. And it actually mentions the dam break at Marib, so they were aware of that. RJ says, Yasin is one of Allah's names. The tafsir of the verse I explained. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I need to look into that. Yasin, but think, sin, Yasin, sin, the moon god Sin. So, Strong's dictionary, Allah, of course, in Strong's H423 means curse, right? So this means curse, swearing, a curse, right? So now we are always told by Muslims that Slim is this Arabic root, this triliteral root means salam and Islam. It's the root for salam, meaning peace, shalom, right, in the Hebrew for greeting, and then Islam, of course, the name of their deen. However, I discovered this is not the whole story. So it says that Islam, the root of Islam, means graven idol. As you know, in the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." So we are often told that the Arabic triliteral root Islam is salam or Islam, and that's true. It is a common Semitic word. It is defined, and you can find it in Strong's H6754 and 6755. It means image. It means heathen gods. And you'll find in 2 Kings 11:18, Amos 5:26, and Daniel 2:31 that God and the apostles and the prophets, they are very, very harsh about destroying these idols, about not allowing them to prosper. Now, Eselem, the earliest known form of Eselem, is in the name of Shalem, the ancient god of dusk of Ugarit, Canaanite, Syria region, who is Venus, the evening star. He is the offspring of El, the Babylonian main god, El, with Aterat, the sun god. So Eselem, Salam, the earliest form is in the name of a Babylonian god. Islam is derived from the same root as a Babylonian god. Imagine Christianity was derived from Christian, who happened to be the son of the major god of the Babylonian pantheon. People wouldn't stop giving us grief about this. That, Jesus, Christian, Babylonian gods. Well, Islam is directly derived from, it means graven idol. It refers directly to a pagan god. Moving on. In Akkadian, it's Salmo. It means inscribed image or statue. In Aramaic and Syriac, Salma means image or idol. It is found in the Nabatean, in the Palmyrene, and in the Arab Hatra in northern Mesopotamia. In Aramaic, Hatra. Never heard of Hatra? Well, yeah. In pre-Islamic Arabia, Essalem is often an object dedicated to a deity. So Essalem is something dedicated to a pagan deity. Islam, who knows, dedicated to a pagan deity. Now, it has a feminine version, Salamat. Okay, in Yemen, it is singular, it is dual, and it is plural. So this word has, you can have multiple gods like the pagan trinity, and so on and so on. You can have father, son, son and companion. The main god with the companion god, and so on. Let's have a look at this Hebrew Chaldee lexicon. Right, it means to be used of anything vain, an image, a likeness, an idol, right? An idol. And it's spoken of extremely negatively in these Bible verses. It is also Syrian and Chaldean, and in Arabic, it also appears as an image. And the letters, okay, now, something I'll get to a little bit later. So any comments or questions? Have I missed anything? And thank you guys for the super chats. Any questions or comments that I've missed in the meantime? Christian Prince has often pointed out the connection between Ar-Rahman and Musaylama. Yes, and that is true. And I will dig deeper into that. But Ar-Rahman, as I said, was the god of the Christians, the monotheistic god of the Christians and Jews. This was simply absorbed into Islam, right? Now, let's talk further. Okay, any more questions? Hold on. Okay, so I will continue here. Now, let's look at Hatra. Hatra is a small Arab kingdom that was in Mesopotamia. So where is Hatra? Well, Hatra is close to the border of northern Iraq and Turkey. So wait, let me bring this up. Let's go find Hatra on a map, okay? Let's go to Hatra in Iraq. Let's go to Hatra. So Mecca is all the way down here. Here's Hatra. This here is Göbekli Tepe. Okay, so you've got the Göbekli Tepe here. This is Hatra. Let me turn on the borders. So this is well into northern Iraq. This place called Hatra was an Arab city-state. Okay, this was an Arab city-state. And it was connected on the trade route all the way down to here, right? So this is interesting. The Arabs happened to have an established fortress city all the way up here, a wealthy fortress city. So Hatra was an ancient, you can see here on the map of Iraq, was an ancient city in Upper Mesopotamia located in present-day eastern Nineveh Governorate in northern Iraq. Right. Thanks, Reasoned Answers. Much appreciated. Right, so let's continue. It's a caravan city, and it flourished in the 2nd century, was destroyed and deserted in the 3rd century, only rediscovered in the 19th century. It used to be called Al-Hadr in Arabic. It's recorded as Hatra in Aramaic inscriptions. It was famed for its fusion of, get this, Greek, Mesopotamian, Canaanite, Aramean, and Arabian pantheons. It had temples to all of these in Hatra. Okay? It was officially called the house of God, the Beit Elaha, in Aramaic inscriptions, and also recorded as the enclosure of Shamash, the sun god, on a coin. So Hatra de Shamash. So it was called the Beit Elaha, the house of God. The Kaaba is the house of God. This is just really interesting, right? This is incredible. I'd never heard of this place until today. It is the capital of possibly the first Arab kingdom in the chain of Arab cities running from Hatra in the northeast via Palmyra in Syria, down to Baalbek, down to Petra. So you had an entire collection. This thing traveled all the way west, right? So you had a whole bunch. So within the heart of Mesopotamia, within the heart of Sumeria, within the heart of the Assyrian kingdoms, you had Arab traders who lived in these wealthy fortified cities. Welcome, Arnold. Welcome. So the city had temples to the god Nergal, who was Assyrian, Babylonian, and Akkadian. Now these are Arabs who are incorporating all of these, who are allowing all these gods to be worshipped. Okay, all of these temples are being built. They're interacting with all of these pagans. Hermes, who was Greek, Athrogatus, who was Syro-Aramean, Alat, who was all the way up north, Shamia, who was Arabian, and Shamash, the Mesopotamian sun god. Other deities mentioned in the Hatran Aramaic inscriptions were the Aramaean Baal Shamain, as well as, and we've heard of Baal Shamain, right? Baal Shamain is also associated with Nabatea, with Petra. And of course, you have the female deity known as Ashurbanipal and others. Earlier rulers of the city were titled Mraj or Maria, known as Lord, and later ones were called Malak Darb, king of the Arabs, the Malaka, the king. Again, this reference to the Abd al-Malik, the servant of the king, the Malik, right? Abd al-Malik was a title, not a name. You'd have Abd al-Malik, somebody. You'd have a name at the end of that. So I'll continue. I'm going pretty fast through these. Let me see where I am. So I'll go go a little bit. So now we have the Hilal. Coming back to this, I've shown this before. This is the Hilal, the crescent moon, right? It is Islam's symbol. So have a look. Pagan symbol, pagan symbol, pagan symbol, right? Pagan symbol, star, right? Pagan symbol. And this is the flag of Morocco. It's a pentagram. It's literally a pentagram, right? One has to ask questions about that. What are they doing? Here's another pagan symbol right up there. So Qamar is the god of the moon, right? Also known as Qamar and Hilal. They were both moon gods of the Arabian pantheon. So the classical Arabic name of the god of the moon in his form of the full moon is Qamar. Arabian names for the moon god include An-Nayir, the luminous one, Sayin, which is cognate of the Babylonian Sin. Sayin, Sin. To the ancient Hadramites, right? This is the people of Yemen, and Ka'el. So the main god, Ka'el, the main god of the Babylonian pantheon, again, to the tribe of Kinda, Ka, right, is the moon. You had Wad to the Manaeans, and Warak, wanderer. Warak, now this is interesting. Don't have a lot to go on here yet, but Waraka ibn Nawfal. Waraka ibn Nawfal, his whole family comes from pagan ancestry. And when they say that this guy was a Christian, I'd have to take that with a little pinch of salt, because both his name and surname both have pagan connections, pagan god connections. So anywho, a common act of moon worship among the Semites was to kiss the hand when you see the moon god. You would kiss your hand. This just makes me think, hold on. So when Muslims run to Mecca and they do their jog around the Kaaba, they all run up and try and kiss the Kaaba. I just wonder if that's connected. So the crescent moon is known as Hilal, which happens to be the name of a moon god, right? Happens to be the name of a moon god in Arabia. The moon is known as Hilal al-Qamar, the planet al-Qamar. And of course, you've got al-Hilal. So this is a sighting of the lunar crescent. Right. Josie Whale says, thanks, Lloyd. I have to go, but I'll catch up later. Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here so far. Hopefully this has been entertaining and also useful. Waraka ibn Nawfal, early Arabian monotheist. Biographical details are few in number and legendary in character. Waraka was the son of Nawfal bin Asad Abd al-Uzza. So his father happened to be the slave of al-Uzza. His father was a pagan, right? He was the cousin of the Prophet's first wife, Khadija. Now, Attar in Islam, stars have souls. So Attar, so we've met Attar before. He was the god, the sun, right? The offspring of the moon and the sun, right? So he's the star god Venus. And Attar also means a relic of the Prophet. But in astrology, Attar is also used as a technical term in the theory of causality, with reference to the influence that the stars have. This is from the Encyclopaedia of Islam. So the stars, according to Islamic thinking, have an effect on human destiny, have an effect on what happens in your life. But in Islam, the stars are considered as higher beings that have a soul. So yes, the stars in Islam are beings that possess a soul. So yeah, I don't know, that sounds like, because you see in the Arabian pantheon, you had the main god, your El or whatever his name was, you had the sun and the moon, right? They have little kiddies, and these kiddies are, well, the stars. The sun and the moon birth the stars. They're all lights, right? And therefore, the stars are higher beings possessing a soul, because Islam still believes in this paganism. Then you have Tahleel, okay? So the first element of the Shahada, right? But also Tahleel is jubilation at seeing the Hilal, which also happens to be the name of a pagan moon god. Right, so this is not done, but Now let's look at the Arabian alphabet for a short moment. I'm going to skip most of this. So Kamaria are the moon letters to which blah, blah, blah. The Islamic, you're right, I need to bring up something else. So let me do, so I'll come up to something else. So within the Islamic alphabet, you have moon letters and sun letters. You have 14 moon letters and 14 sun letters. So notice the Kamaria are the moon letters. So the Tajweed is, if I recall, it's how you interpret and read the Quran. I'd have to check that in a moment. Actually, let me do that right now. So let me go to, of course, my spelling is terrible. Tajweed. Let's go to this Arabic English dictionary. Let's bring this up, what Tajweed is, so that let's hope this thing moves along a little bit. Here we go. Tajweed is the art of reciting the Quran, reading in accordance with established rules of pronunciation and intonation. So it's not understanding it, it's how to recite it, how to make it sound nice. That's Tajweed. So a first principle of Tajweed, blah, blah, blah. They have here 14 Shamsi letters, the name of the god of the sun, the pagan sun god, solar or sun letters, and Kamari, moon letters. And of course, Ar-Rasul, the prophet, is pronounced Ar-Rasul instead of Al-Rasul because Ra is the, let's see, the sun god of Egypt. Just a sheer coincidence, right? Just sheer coincidence. It's a blending sun letter. Yeah, fascinating stuff. And let me bring up something else I was going to go to here. Right, so let me go here, and I need to go to, so I want to bring up something with regards to, and I've shown some of you this before, with regards to Islamic alphabet. Huruf, ahruf, right? The science of letters. So ahruf, remember, they've all spoken about the ahruf, the different readings. Well, it also happens to be called the science of letters. It's also called onomatomancy, which is a magical practice. Right? It is white magic. It is based on the occult, supposed white magic anyway, occult properties, based on the occult properties of the letters of the alphabet. So the Islamic alphabet has occult properties. So, and it's involved with arithmomancy or gematria, right? They've got their own version. They've got alchemy involved. And you have 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet in 4 categories, 7 letters each: fire, air, earth, water. And you have the fire letters, the air letters, and the lunar and solar letters. Bear that in mind. This again is pagan. Welcome. Hey there, man. Hey, Sneakers Corner. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Okay, yeah. So thanks for being, man. Thanks very much. Right. So I'm going to skip this bit. Again, this is not ready, but I want to make note of something else. Muhammad, I've spoken of in the Sirah. Muhammad is the light. He's the Nur Muhammadi, right? The Nur Muhammadi, the light of Muhammad. Now, Islam has, well, the Arabic language has sunlight and moonlight, right? Sunlight is diya, and moonlight is called nur. Interestingly, the references to Muhammad within the Islamic literature is to the moonlight, the Nur Muhammadi. The Nur Muhammadi. He is the moonlight. Why would he be the moonlight if he's not beholden to the moon god, the servant of the moon god? Understand? You've got Shams, the sunlight, and Kamar Nuran, the moon. So yeah, make of that what you will. Make of that what you will. So now the moon symbol and your lying eyes. In other cultures, the moon was female, the sun was male. These are reversed in Arabia, and especially under the Sabaeans, right, from Yemen. The star is the sun of the moon and the sun. Now, Muslims fast from crescent moon to crescent moon. Islam has a lunar calendar, and Islam's symbol on mosques is the crescent moon. And someone mentioned this massive crescent moon on top of the clock, on top of the Fairmont Hotel in Mecca. These are people. You see these little squiggles here? These are people. Those are humans standing there. This thing is enormous. Okay, so Jason Bourne, Jesus called the morning star. Well, that may be Jason Bourne, except the context is completely different. But we're not talking about that, unless you talk about Islam and explain all of these connections to the pagan Babylonian pantheon. We're going to have to silence you, put you in timeout. You guys have permission to put him in timeout if he gets annoying, please. Now, notice this is the same symbol here. The star, this is a pagan symbol. This is Babylonian. The same symbol. Islam has exactly the same symbolism, precisely the same symbolism. This is paganism to the core, right? Let's go to the Kaaba Doors. The Kaaba Doors have a sun symbol on them. That's a sun symbol, sun symbol. This is either a moon or a star symbol. I'm not certain if it's the moon. I think this would be the star symbol. So you've got the sun and the moon on the Kaaba Doors. Right, let's have a look at the previous Kaaba doors. Apparently, these doors have been replaced 6 times. Again, the sun symbol. Again, the sun. Now, let's have a look about Yahweh. So now, in pre-Islamic era, Arab Christians used the theophoric name Abdallah, servant of Allah, as a baptismal name. Abdallah was also Muhammad's father's name. Now, some have said that the Arabic Abdallah and Ubaidullah are translations of the Hebrew Obadiah. One of Muhammad's uncles was named Ubaidullah. However, Obadiah means servant of Yahweh. Abdullah means servant of Allah. Allah is the standard Arabic word for God, true enough, and is used by Arab Christians as well as by Muslims. Though Arab Christians spoke the Arabic language and they used the appellation Allah, meaning the God. We know they were Trinitarian. So the Quran states that the Christians and Jews referred to Yahweh by the title Allah, and Christians called Jesus Allah's son. So we know then that this was a Trinitarian God who had a son. They were referring to this neutral term, the God. Allah in Islam, though, within the Islamic religion, is a name. It is not a title, the God. It's a name. Arab Christians also use the theophoric name Abdallah, servant of Allah, as a baptismal name. When Christians used the title Allah, they had the God of the Bible in mind. By contrast, Abdallah was also the name of Muhammad's pagan father. He, however, was named after Allah, the Makkan moon god, just as the Makkans with the names Hilal and Qamar were named in honor of the Makkan moon god, different names of the moon god. That the pre-Islamic Arab Christians called Yahweh by the title Allah, the God, as a general title, and the Arabs called the high moon god Allah, the God, as a name, does not show the slightest commonality between Christianity and Islam and the deity of each. Now, we also can go back in time. Remember, Muhammad had a son called Manaf, servant of Manaf, who was a moon god. Then you, star god, Venus, star god. Then you had Abd al-Uzza, another son called Abd al-Uzza, right, who was now slave of al-Uzza, which is very interesting. But his great-grandfather was also called Abd Manaf. So his whole family, and of course we know that he sacrificed an ewe to al-Uzza. Muhammad used to worship al-Uzza. We know that he and Khadija worshipped al-Uzza as well. Now, the grammatical gender of the moon shows that Allah was a moon god. The grammatical gender of the word moon was one reason the moon was considered the high god in Arabian patriarchal societies. In Arabic, the usual words involving the moon are masculine. Qamar, moon. Badr, full moon. Battle of Badr, battle of the full moon. And Hilal, crescent. The word for sun in Semitic languages is feminine. Right? The Encyclopaedia Britannica states the word sun is feminine in Arabic. And Yusuf Ali, our fantastic Bible translator, tells us the moon was a male divinity in ancient India. Oh, where'd they get that idea? It was also a male divinity in ancient Semitic religion, and the Arabic word for the moon, Qamar, is one of the masculine gender. On the other hand, the Arabic word for the sun, Shams, is of feminine gender. The pagan Arabs looked upon the sun as a goddess and the moon as a god. Quran translations do not follow the Arabic conventions concerning the gender of the sun and the moon. So Western scholars will typically follow the ancient mythology of the local area that they live in. So in other words, if they're from England or America or wherever they might be, they translate sun as masculine because they do in their culture. They're not thinking in terms of the Arabic culture. English translations use masculine pronouns for the sun and feminine pronouns for the moon when they should invert those, right? Or they use neutral for both, and these are both wrong. Right, let's look at some coins. Right. Now you've got the same symbol on Hadrian's coin here from the very early 2nd century. Hadrian's coin, pagan symbol, star and moon god. Okay, star and moon, right? Now, the Muslims are very keen to tell us that Turkey established the crescent and star, I think in the 17th century or the 18th century. They'll tell you, no, it's a very late change. So, who knows, whatever. Give us a link to your sources, Jason Boring. Yeah, as I said, if Jason Boring gets annoying, just give him a timeout. But whatever. So now we're told by Muslims that the Ottomans introduced the symbolism of the crescent moon, the pagan crescent moon god, and the star very late in history, like 17th, 18th century, something like that. Notice here, this is the first quarter of the 8th century. This is the 700s. And here you've got a Turkish coin with the moon god symbol. He's wearing a moon god crown, the bull's head crown, and two crescent moons, right? The bull's head crown, two crescent moons, and notice the star in the crescent moon right here. Then you've got here a star and crescent coin from Haran, right? I've got a paper interesting on old coinage from there. It's actually all attested. Yeah. Just send us the links, Jason Boring. Yeah. Now, so Haran. So basically, remember, these guys were up there. They had trading routes. They had fortified cities. They had little city-states. Now let's look at the ancient Egyptian moon goddess from Egypt. There we go. Exactly the same symbol as was in Axum in Ethiopia. Exactly the same symbol as we had in Yemen, right? Remember, the disk here, this little round disk, is not necessarily the sun. It can also represent Venus. So it could be the sun, could also be the star, just as a disk representing Venus, the morning star. But you've got the disk. So this is the ancient Egyptian moon goddess. And here again, very early inscription. This is a very early inscription on a mural from Karum in Anatolia. Star, crescent, star, crescent. Right, let's continue. Yemen. Let's go back to Yemen and Saba. Now, these are coins. You can see the crescent and the dot may be the sun. It could also be the moon. Sorry, may also be the star. And again, you've got the bull. This is the Al-Makkah. These little lines here, these pillars, right? We spoke of the pillars and that God wanted those pillars destroyed because they were a abomination to God, right? These are for Al-Makkah, the pillars, and then you get the same symbol. You have the same symbol. You have the same symbolism here, the same symbolism in these coins. Now let's deconstruct these. So this is the Venus moon couplet. So this is the star moon. It's not the sun moon, it's the star moon. This is the symbol to Al-Makkah, the moon god. And this is the Baqqa symbol, the Baqqa. So Jason Boring, you will provide links to what you are citing. If he doesn't provide a link the next time, someone just please time him out. Right? So now you have Al-Makkah, the moon god. And this is the Baqqa symbol. Now, I know we've spoken of Baqqa, okay? It's in the Quran 396. They speak of Baqqa, which is translated by English translators of the Quran into Mecca. It says Baqqa, but they translate it as Mecca. Fine and well. However, here we've got an actual reference to Baqqa, right? Baqqa. The Baqqa symbol means glory be to Allah. It also translates as glory be to Al-Makkah because Al-Makkah and Allah are interchangeable. They're synonymous. Al-Makkah is Allah. Allah is Al-Makkah. Right? So this symbol means glory be to Allah. Glory be to Al-Makkah. And this is the symbol of Venus. Right? And this is the Awam temple, the symbolism dedicated to Al-Makkah. So the Baqqa symbol meant glory be to Allah. And by the way, is Mel out here? Okay. Cheers, Mel. Thanks for dropping in. So Lloyd, here's a bunch of evidence Allahs derived from pre-Islamic moon gods. Jason, here's some random words found in inscriptions. I know. Thank you, Thaddeus. I know. We have to wonder about this. People can't put links in the live stream. Okay. Sorry, then I may have to enable that. Sorry, it's the very first time I'm using StreamYard because OBS kept crashing and I don't know why. Okay. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay. So now, guys, you've got Baqqa. I've been to the Bekaa Valley, okay, in the Lebanon. I've been to Lebanon multiple times. I did some work there for the Air Force. Long story. I can tell you lots of fun stories about my life, but not today. And not live on YouTube anyway. But Baqqa, okay, I've been to the Bekaa Valley. That was a fascinating experience. I've been a few times, been like 3 times, spent some time there. So notice now, what we do find is that these early Sabaean, these Yemeni coins, okay, these Yemeni coins actually were based on Athenian coinage. These guys were trading directly and probably traveling to Greece, right, to Athens. And they had a strong interest in the Mediterranean world. They had a very powerful connection with all of the known world at the time. But as they grew more powerful, they eventually wanted to establish their own identity and they started minting their own coins. They did a very poor job at first, from what I've seen, but they got better with time. Now, notice here, this is the same region. This is Yemen. Notice the letters S-I-N. This coin has sin directly stamped on the coin. Okay, directly stamped on the coin. The god Sin in Mecca. Well, the god, Al-Makkah, Allah, Al-Makkah. Also, Al-Makkah, remember, is a two-part word. It's El and Makkah. Makkah, as far as I know, is the servant of, right? The creature of, the creature of, the possession of, or the servant of El, Allah, right? Sin on this coin. Sin right here on this coin. So the god Sin is named on this Yemeni coin. And these guys traveled all the way up to Turkey. They were trading with the Romans, the Greeks, the Indians. These guys were everywhere. So yes, Sin on the coin. So understand, Sin was not just in Haran. Sin was in Mecca, next to Mecca, north of Mecca, south of Mecca, west of Mecca, okay, inside Mecca, okay. Sin was everywhere. The whole of Arabia worshipped Sin. Okay, the sign of Sin, the spear, and the horned god again. You've got the moon crescent, okay, and the spear, because he's, as far as I believe this is because he's a war god. Here you've got this Turkish guy stepping on the cross and holding the crescent moon. Okay, and in this drawing, there's some history which I don't have time to get into because I never looked into it. Mother Mary is stepping on the moon god. Here she is stepping, just like he's stepping on the cross, she is destroying and stepping on the moon god. Okay, briefly, so I'll start rounding down now. Okay, so Allah's association with the moon is plain to see in the Quran and on top of every mosque, yet Muslims tell us not to believe our lying eyes. That symbol is the symbol of the moon god, Sin, the Babylonian pagan moon god. Just believe that Allah is the God of the Bible and not a pagan moon god. No, he's not the God of the Bible. So in the Quran, now a couple of things. I'm still working on this, as you know. This is raw and rough. So Odon LaFontaine needs to present this. Present what? In the Quran, King Dulkarnain is considered a good Muslim. Now Dulkarnain means the two-horned one, the two horns, God of the moon, which refers to the crescent atop the royal crown he wore. He was a servant of the moon god. The crescent crown indicates allegiance to the moon god. And he watched the sun set in a mud puddle. Quran 1883, it shows that Dulkarnain, this parable about Dulkarnain, therefore has a pro-lunar and an anti-solar message. He is a servant of the moon god and he watches the sun set. And of course, the moon rises and achieves supremacy over the sun god. Now, also, the Quran complains that they found the Queen of Sheba and her people prostrating to the sun instead of to Allah, implying the moon. Egerton Sykes, a very well-known scholar of the time and of this subject, says Allah seems to have been preceded by Il-Makkah, also known as Al-Makkah, the Sabaean moon god, who ultimately was modeled on the Mesopotamian moon god Sin. The Quran's Queen of Sheba account shows that the Quran is pro-lunar, anti-solar scripture. So look, guys, I've presented this is from multiple different scholars, multiple different books of archaeology, multiple different books, and these are academic papers, huge books on this subject. I'm not just drawing for one guy saying one thing. This is from a bunch of different academic sources, okay, all on this subject. So right, they all are saying the same thing, that the Arabian pantheon is Babylonian. It is 100% derived from Babylon, okay? And Allah is a moon god derived from the Babylonian gods. And then later on, you take this pig, you put some lipstick on it of Gnosticism, which is pseudo-biblical, and you go, voila, there you go, Islam. So Gabriel Schoner says, Islam copied from Christianity and Judaism, but messed it all up, unfortunately. Yes. Okay, so guys, the Yemenite, I'll probably just wind up here. I'll go for another 4 minutes, right? And so the Prophet taught that we should seek out Iman, faith, and Aqidah, the creed, theology, from the people of Yemen and the Asharis. Ashari, Asharat, the Venus, the sun god, either the sun or the star god. Okay, Ashari, Ashar, Athar, sun god or star god. Narrated Abu Huraira. Okay, this is Tirmidhi. It's in Bukhari. It's in Muslim. It's in Da'if Bukhari and Da'if Muslim, as you know. Our faith is Yemeni and wisdom is Yemeni. Let's continue. Muhammad says the belief is that of the Yemenites. The Islamic belief is that of the Yemenites, and the Yemenis are Babylonian moon god worshippers. Okay, narrated, and that is Muslim. And let's look at Bukhari. The capacity for understanding religion is Yemenite, and what were the Yemenis at the time? Babylonian moon god worshippers. And Muhammad says, hey, we get our religion from the Yemenis. Okay. And of course, what does it say again in Muslim? The belief is that of the Yemenites. The understanding of the faith is that of the Yemenites. And the Babylonians, well, these Yemenis were Babylonian moon god worshippers. Let's have a look at a few more. Belief is Yemenite and wisdom is Yemenite. Bukhari. And of course, Anas bin Malik. Which garment did Allah's messenger, may police be upon him, love or like to wear? And he said, the mantle of Yemen. Interesting. I have not seen the Prophet touching except the Yemenite corners, the ones facing Yemen. It was narrated from Abdullah bin Ubayd bin Umar that a man said, oh, blah, blah, blah. Why do I see you touching these two corners? And he said, I heard the messenger of Allah say, touching them erases sins. Remember, we had the God of salvation who is Yeshu. So there has to be a link to this. That's my thinking. And I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip all that. So Arabia shared the gods of Mesopotamia, being so close to Babylon. Alat and Al-Makkah were the same god according to this. And Sin. Alat, Al-Makkah, and Sin. And Atar as a god of war. They were gods of war. Okay, it's all the same deity. Now, so the temple in, okay, blah, blah. Al-Makkah or Al-Mukkah was a moon god corresponding to Sin. Okay, so you had and to the Hadramatis, Sin. His consort was the sun, Shamash, and Atar, the planet Venus, who corresponded to the Babylonian Ishtar. That's in the archaeology of world religions. I'm going to continue here for a second. I'm going to jump a few slides, see if I find anything that's interesting. Manaf, a deity of ancient Arabia. Abd-Manaf was one of the four sons. We'll skip all that. That's a bit dull. The moon temple of Sin in Arabia. Let's have a look at this. Archaeology. Right, final slide, guys, and I'll call it a night. Hopefully this has been interesting. So I will finish it. It took characters like, oh yes, my dog needs to be okay. Now, synopsis: the Moon Temple, the first to be excavated in Arabia, stood visible from afar in the Haram area. Okay, there were stumps of stone pillars. My very first show on Thaddeus's stream was about the stone pillars. The orientation of the building follows the Mesopotamian practice of setting the four corners. Blah blah blah. It's Mesopotamian. Then you have the Sabaeans and you have the Hadramutis. These are the guys that invaded Arabia. And in 22 of the inscriptions at this temple of Sin in Arabia, the dedication to Sin is preserved. So in other words, there are carvings where this whole portal is dedicated specifically to the moon god, Sin of Babylon. And of course, he's also known as Khaol, Ka'el, and Al-Makkah. Right? There you go, multiple names. So the mud brick clinched the evidence, which further supported this by scarce shards and masonry fragments, some finely dressed, one of which bore the letters S-I-N. So the god Sin is named at least 22 times in this temple in Arabia. So, in other words, so you've got an incomplete Sin invocation, which is archaic, and it invokes the moon god under the Sabaean name Al-Makkah. So Makkah, the moon god. Man, you go into Hubal, the moon god. You go into it's all the moon god. I'll stop here for tonight, guys. What did you learn? Hopefully this was really interesting. But what did you guys learn? But Sin is all over Arabia. So any thoughts from you guys? Many scholars think. Well, many scholars are wrong, and many scholars think that, for instance, Muhammad's a pedophile, and he was. Right, according to Western standards, and he'd be in jail today. He'd be serving time if not executed. Yeah, thank you, Reason Answers. Much appreciated, Thaddeus. Right. Yeah, so guys, I mean, hopefully I've demonstrated convincingly that the Babylonian pantheon is the Arabian pantheon. Right, the connections from Yemen, and we haven't even started in Ethiopia yet, but the connections, but that's where Islam stole its Christian roots. Right, so the whole Christian practice that it kind of derived, it took from Ethiopia, and then of course you've got the connections to the north, which is the Gnosticism and all that. Then we have to go to Najran, but yeah, man, this is insane. So what did you guys pick up? Anything that was new and interesting? But see, the scholars that I've seen all say Al-Makkah is the moon god Sin. The archaeology proves it. The archaeology most definitively proves it, because this happens to come from the territory of the moon god Al-Makkah. So yeah, so I will cover this on Sunday with Thaddeus. I'm busy working on it for the rest of the week, clarifying a few things, and hopefully I'll finish this, and then I will. Lloyd, you've successfully drawn together a great deal of previously occulted threads. Thank you very much. See, Jason, you clearly weren't listening. You clearly were not listening to me. Now, yeah. So obviously this guy's clearly not listening. Now, it should be noted, guys, that Islam uses what's called heuristic dialectic. It doesn't use logic. Logic is haram in Islam. They use what's called heuristic dialectic. Think of it as a contest. It's an intellectual contest. That's why they want to have debates. It is not a matter of logic of finding the truth. It's the principle of defeating your opponent, undermining your opponent, undermining the argument, making them capitulate. Heuristic was utilized by the Greek sophists, and Islam borrowed this practice. There are about 38 techniques specific to their method of dishonest debate. Right? I've covered this in the past, and I can do so again. But it's a dishonest method of using rhetoric to lie and deceive. It falls under the rubric of hiyal. It's a military tactic. It is proper. Remember, dawah does not mean evangelization. Dawah means propaganda and pretense. Propaganda and pretense. Propaganda is by definition heuristic. Right? It is designed to defeat an opponent. It is designed to dispute, not to find truth. So this is what they do, right? So do make a note of that. Right. So, yeah. So, okay. Like trying to drink from a fire hose. I get told that all the time. Is the pseudonym Yasin linked? Yes, it's sin. Yasin. Yasin. I mean, like how obvious can it be? It's written right on the page. Yasin. Sin. So, yeah. Now, of course, Jason Bourne is not listening. Clearly, he wasn't paying attention. But guys, that's it from me. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much for the super chats. I'm grateful for that. Yeah, spent a lot of time on this. I will go through this again. There's a lot to be said. What's your take on Sinai as sin? Do I need to give you one right now? No, we can do that another time when I've spent time researching it, using actual facts instead of typical Islamic taqiyya, lies, obfuscations, redirections, misdirections, deceit. Yeah. So let me see. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. I hope this was interesting and entertaining, and most importantly, educational, right? And yeah, hold on. Where is that? I need to. Okay. So guys, yeah, thank you very much. Any comments? Drop them down below in the comments later. And yeah, you guys know where to find me. Look me up if you need. Schopenhauer speaks on heuristic dialectic, correct, on the Nathaniel. We need to have a chat about that one day with Schopenhauer's discussion on heuristic dialectic. This is the technique. This is the technique that Muslims use to evade, to avoid, to lie, to deceive. And don't forget, lying is legal. It is 100% not only legal in Islam, it is obligatory. It is compulsory, right? So yeah. So Hassan, thank you very much. And I will see you guys next time. Good night.